Welcome to the presentation of the PR2000, which is the compliance report for the Title I Part D program as part of the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Reports. The PR2000, which is part of the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Report, will be made available on July 28 and it will be due on September 29th. In the year 21-22, we gathered data based on the responses of the program self-check items of the PR2000. Each area, Part A, Part B, and Part C, covers specific requirements. As you can see, only a few LEAs reported not to be in compliance for the year 21-22. In order to understand the full override of the PR2000, we should take a look at the process that led to this outcome. First, the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education submitted to the Federal Register a packet in which they are requesting data. This packet went through 2 rounds of public comment that they must respond to. Then, the Office of Management and Budget received clearance for this packet back in June-July of 2022. The packet asked for a desegregation of facility types, though it did not include definitions of each. Definitions do not get released until February of 2023, at which point the Texas Education Agency started to work with the National Technical Assistance Provider to define changes to the PR2000. In March-April, the agency starts the rewrite of the PR2000 and submits for official mockups, which then are used to draft the instructions. The U.S. Department of Education, alongside the Office of Management and Budget, have worked on a packet for data collection covering years 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25. In this packet, we see the inclusion of different facility types, such as the one listed on the slide. As mentioned before, thanks to this packet, this led to a whole complete rewrite of the PR2000. Thanks to these changes, now we see a clear distinction between neglected programs and delinquent programs. Neglected programs will only be required to be reported by the state agencies under Subpart 1. Delinquent programs will apply to both state agencies and local education agencies for Subpart 2. Local education agencies will also be required to answer for at-risk programs. Breaking it down, we have the law, ESSA, that provides guidance between neglected, delinquent, and at risk. Now, thanks to the new definitions, we see that under neglected, we have new facility types, such as group homes, shelters, community day programs, residential treatment centers, and other. On the delinquent side, we have new facility types such as adult corrections, community day programs, juvenile detention centers, shelters, group homes, ranch wilderness camps, residential treatment centers, long-term secure juvenile facilities, and other. Please note that these changes are on the way we report data, not on the program requirements. For more information, please check out the compliance report instructions. The Department of Education has added neglected programs to the participation table for state agencies. The state agency may not have a neglected program, but it is available as things may change or as you may potentially expand your services. As shown in this slide, for Subpart 2, only delinquent and at-risk programs are required to be reported under Subpart 2 for LEAs. Now, let's go over the definitions of the different delinquent programs. An adult correctional institution is a facility in which persons, including persons 21 and under, are confined as a result of a conviction for a criminal offense. The term community day program means a regular program of instruction provided at a community day school operated specifically for neglected or delinquent children and youth. A group home is a long-term facility in which residents are allowed to extensive contact with the community, such as attending school or holding a job. This includes halfway houses. A juvenile detention center is a shorter-term institution that provides care for children who require secure custody pending court adjudication, court disposition, or execution of a court order, or care to children after commitment. A long-term secure facility is a public or private residential facility that provides confinement of its residents for the care of children who have been adjudicated to be delinquent or in need of supervision. A ranch wilderness camp is a long-term residential facility for persons whose behavior does not necessitate the strict confinement of a long-term secure facility, often allowing them greater contact with the community. It includes ranches, forestry camps, wilderness or marine programs, or farms. A residential treatment center is a facility that focuses on providing some type of individual planned treatment program for youth, such as substance abuse, sex offender, or mental health, in conjunction with residential care. The U.S. Department of Education notes that it is unlikely that most treatment centers will meet the definition of an institution for delinquent children and youth. Any other programs not defined above, which receive Title I Part D funds and serve a letter of delinquent youth, must be reported under other programs. Please refer to the definitions resource available on the capacity building website. This resource is tailored for Subpart 2 folks. The PR2000 is broken down into 5 parts. Part 1 covers the LEA program facility type, which includes number of program facilities, average numbers of days served, and average length of stay. Part 2 covers student participation, which includes gender, race, ethnicity, age, and student groups such as students with disabilities, English learners, and long-term students. In Part 1, LEA program facility types, state agencies will be required to fill out the neglected section for this part. LEAs will only need to respond to delinquent and at-risk sections of this part. In Part 1, the LEAs and state agencies will report the number of programs facilities and the average numbers that they serve and the average length of stay. Please note that the average number of days means the average numbers of days students receive program funding services from the facility. In Part 2, student participation, the LEA and the state agency will fill out the gender and race ethnicity sections with counts per program facility type. State agencies will need to fill out the neglected section. LEAs and the state agencies will need to fill out the delinquent section. LEAs will then need to fill out the at-risk section. In Part 2, Section B, both the state agencies and the LEAs will list the number of students by age. Similarly to before, state agencies will need to respond to the neglected section. LEAs and state agencies will need to fill out the delinquent section. LEAs will only need to fill out the at-risk section. In Part 2, Section C, the state agencies and the LEAs will need to report student numbers by student groups. The state agencies will need to respond to the neglected section. LEAs and state agencies will need to fill out the delinquent section. LEAs will then need to fill out the at-risk section. In the next parts of the PR2000, we have Part 3, Program and Exit Outcomes, which includes number of students enrolled in districts within 90 days after exit, number of students attain academic and career and technical outcomes while enrolled in the program, both in facility and 90 days after exit. Part 4, Academic Achievement and Proficiency, which includes academic achievement of long-term students for reading and math, students who show from initial to follow-up assessment whether there was an improvement up to one full grade level, more than one full grade level, negative grade level, or no change. Lastly, we see assessment proficiency, which is a completely optional data request. This is the number of students who attain proficiency or not in the state assessments. In Part 3, Program and Exit Outcomes, the state agencies will fill out the first column for Subpart 1 programs and report the number as appropriate. For state agencies, the second column will be grayed out. For LEAs, they will fill out the second column for Subpart 2 programs and report numbers as appropriate. For LEAs, the first column will be grayed out. In Part 4, following the same pattern as Part 3, the state agencies will report numbers on the first columns with Subpart 2 items grayed out. The LEAs will report numbers on the second column with Subpart 1 items grayed out. Part 5 is the Program Compliance Self-Check section. In this section, state agencies and the LEAs will indicate compliance with program requirements. For the 22-23 Program Compliance Self-Check items, they will remain the same as the year before. Here we have some frequently asked questions provided by the U.S. Department of Ed. First, we can see that if the data cannot be disaggregated between delinquent and at-risk programs, the LEA is still required to report it. Then, we see if the LEA subgrantees Title I Part D Subpart 2 to multiple programs for facilities. Each one of those programs should be reported. Then, we see if the data cannot be disaggregated by all the specified categories of delinquent of facilities. In essence, you should report all programs. Then, we see that on this report, we do not ask for programs funded solely through Title I Part A. Continuing with frequently asked questions, we see what is the definition of for a residential treatment center. A residential treatment center is a facility that focuses on providing some type of individually planned treatment program for youth in conjunction with residential care. The Department of Education notes that it's unlikely that most treatment centers will meet the definition of an institution for delinquent children and youth. What is the difference between Subpart 1 and Subpart 2? Subpart 1 grants are made to state agencies, while Subpart 2 grants are made to LEAs. Due to the scope of service, state agency programs may look drastically different in contrast to local education agencies. For the purpose of PR2000, follow Subpart 2 guidance. What is the definition of at risk as it pertains to the PR2000? The term at risk, when used with respect to a child, youth, or student, means a school-age individual who is at risk of academic failure, dependency adjudication, or delinquency adjudication, has a drug or alcohol problem, is pregnant or is a parent, has come into contact with the juvenile justice system, or child welfare system in the past, is at least 1 year behind the expected grade level for the age of the individual, is an English learner, is a gang member, has dropped out of school in the past, or has high absenteeism rate at school. Part 3, Program Exit Outcomes, 90 days after exit. How is the student tracked that returns to a district other than their home LEA? Is it the responsibility of the facility, the LEA, both, or the LEA only? The answer is it depends. Typically, when a youth goes to a different LEA that is not the home LEA, there will be a record request of some type. At that point, the request may come to the LEA or the facility, or in cases both. The fiscal agent receiving Title I Part D Subpart 2 funds is the one held responsible for providing the data for the PR2000. However, the LEA may have established other internal controls that may differ. Part 4, Academic Achievement and Proficiency, Assessment Proficiency Optional. What does that mean? Does the LEA decide if they can report this information? The answer is correct. The guidance states that this is an optional method of tracking progress. The LEA is not mandated to use it as part of the progress tracking system. Thank you for your time and attention. If you need assistance, please reach out to the contact information posted.